So hi, welcome. My name is Karen A. here in Jerusalem. I am here with Kirsty and Nadia, my mama squad, my god mama squad. And we're here with Reco12 in the Afro-Euro Timezone, and we bring to you the second in a series, Mommies in Recovery, the Family Afterwards podcast. We'll be referencing the Family Afterward, but we're going to start a new series starting with step one and bringing in a little bit of the doctor's opinion. Step one, and sharing our experience, strength, and hope from the big book as Mommies in Recovery. We're part of the Reco12 family. Reco12 is a fellowship of recovering addicts. The newcomers are, of course, welcome, even if they're drowning and deep in their addiction. You have found the right place. We service dutifully all addictions, all afflictions, and most of us work the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That was the big book says. We don't have a monopoly of God. We do accept those who have found other ways of recovering and want to share their experience, strength, and hope. This family is focused on the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we're going to share our recovery as it pertains to parenting. If you want to check out Reco12, you can go ahead and Google it. In a little bit, I'll put the Reco12 website, our seventh tradition. If you would like to pay through PayPal or Venmo, you can make your contribution. That helps us keep these Zoom meetings alive and open new ones all the time, like Nikki's Big Book Roundtable. I believe that's on Tuesdays. I apologize if I got that wrong. Justin's amazing Reco12 series. And if you missed it yesterday, Tom S. was on with his guitar and a beautiful, beautiful musical message of recovery and spirituality. And for us women on the line, I felt it was next level male recovery sharing. So thanks to Tom yesterday. I recommend you listen to that. And thank you for joining us. We hope that you get something from this meeting. And for the newcomer who is still suffering, we hope you get experience, strength, and hope, that you get through the steps and you pass your light forward, and then join us and you lead a Reco12 share. You can listen to other Reco12 shares. We've hosted both Nadia and Kirsty here in this fellowship. So without further ado, we're going to talk about step one. And what better way to talk about step one? So my name is Karen A. in Jerusalem. Just to give you a little bit about me, if you don't know me, I came in these rooms through OA. I identify with CODA and other people addictions. I work with women, primarily Orthodox women, though I have men in these fellowships for outreach that truly inspire me on a day-to-day basis. I do work with women and a little bit of a specialty with Orthodox Jewish women, but I have sisters of all shapes, colors, orientations, and I love them all and all people. Okay, so that's me. Step one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. Of course, you can edit, replace sex, drugs, thinking, parenting, which is what we're going to talk about today, our children, workaholism, overtasking. What have I missed? What other addictions we got? Cocaine, narcotics, marijuana, fantasy addiction, drama addiction, whatever it is. So we admitted that we are powerless over the DOC, drug of choice, that our lives had become unmanageable. Right? Our lives had become unmanageable. So there's two parts there. The first part is we admitted we were powerless over the substance. And the second part, it's a continuation that we admitted that our lives have become unmanageable. So we're talking about the admission. Okay. So I'm going to open it up to Kirsty. Will you introduce yourself, give a brief recovery bio, and then share your thoughts? Step one, the doctor's opinion, how you admitted, talking about the admitting that you're powerless. Thank you.
Hi guys, so grateful to be here. Thank you so much, Karen, Nadia, and everyone else that makes this possible behind the scenes. Kirsty, very, very grateful, recovered addict. So I am a member of AA and CA, but also go to meetings open to all addictions. My beautiful meeting, Pass It On Bill's Way as well. Well, not my meeting, our meeting. so involved in lots of different fellowships. My personal experience with step one is I experienced my step one before I come into any rooms. I experienced that through my life of doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different outcome. What I know today, what I didn't know then. I have a mind that lies to me. I have a mind that keeps telling me you can pick up that first drink, drug, man, whatever. My irrational shouting at my children, like I can pick up my first thoughts. I can pick that up and the different outcome will come. That was my insane thinking, my insanity of keep doing the same action, desperately somehow someday wanting to be like other people, go out and have a glass of wine with my dinner, have a few lines at a festival. My life experience showed me my total powerlessness over my disease, but without getting with another addict like-minded and learning in the doctor's opinion what I suffer from, knowing that not only does my mind lie to me, once I put one in, I set off this phenomenon of craving. And that means that my body screams for more. And I cannot, it's beyond my mental control once I have put the substance in me. I cannot stop. And that's why I ruin my kids' lives. That's why, first of all, my liar can't bring that memory back and I put that first one in. But once I put the first one in, then I crave, but a phenomenon of craving that's beyond my mental control. So I find it impossible to stop. And I learned that. And as soon as I hear that and see it in these pages, then I can relate to that because my past experience, I've experienced step one for 20 years. And a bit in doctor's opinion, I noodled this out with one of my God squad yesterday as well, funnily enough. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that whilst they admit it is injurious, they cannot after time differentiate the true from the false. So this also tells me, and this is another way I know I'm an addict, my unmanageability, because I drink essentially because I like the effect produced by alcohol. I sniff cocaine because I like the effect. That effect being, not that I'm getting all drunk and happy, that effect being that it changes me. It changes that unmanageability. That's the effect the drug has. It's my solution, my solution to life, my solution to dealing with my children. I can't be a mom, but the effect I like produced is elusive. It's not real. But what it's doing is it's changing the way I feel. And I'm unmanageable. My unmanageability is on the inside. I cannot manage me. I cannot manage being a parent. I cannot manage being a person. I need the effect of cocaine to be able to be me. And that is my real problem, that I've got the mind of an alcoholic, that I'm an addict without the substance there. So when I no longer have that effect produced by the alcohol, the drugs, I need another effect. So when I truly understand my illness, when I know I am totally powerless, when I know my mind is going to lie to me, and when I fully concede to my innermost self that I'm never going to be cured of the fact I can be recovered today from the state of mind, I'm never going to be cured. Whenever I put one in, my body's going to have that allergic reaction. I'm going to scream more phenomenon of craving. I need to change. I need something that produces that effect, that makes my unmanageability manageable today. And thank God I found it here in these beautiful rooms. And that is God. That is as simple as this program. God, I think it's page 102, has either removed my problem or he has not. My drug problem, my me problem, God has either removed it or he has not. More God, less Kirsty, more God, less Kirsty. And I think I don't want to babble on. Is that enough for an introduction, Karen? I'm sorry, I get carried away.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. And yeah, we want more Kirsty, but we're going to have now lots of God, more Kirsty. And now we're going to have some Nadia with the help of a higher power. Nadia, will you please share on the admission of powerlessness, how you saw and take us into some passages that you so beautifully shared with me one-on-one into the big book, where you saw the powerlessness as a mommy in recovery.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Kirsty, for being here with us. And just our attendees today and anybody else listening. I'm Nadia, and I'm a grateful, recovered member of AA and CA and all Afflictions Anonymous. came into these rooms learning that it wasn't just the drugs and the alcohol and the men, like my sister said, no, it was my thinking, and the selfishness and the self-centeredness. I am given a new identity. I'm an intelligent agent, and I'm daughter of the Father of Light, a loving, powerful God. Oh, the powerlessness, the unmanageability. I pointed it out as we were snorkeling around in this big book. There's this self-centered ego that just has phrases like, I have arrived, in Bill's story, I was part of life at last. I fancied myself a leader. And, when I fell pregnant, those things came to the fore more so because there was this title and this old idea about what a mother was, and that I had to be a mother supreme, and that my child now owed her life to me. These old ideas. And I'd come in, and I don't think I've ever been more frightened in my entire existence than what I was when I found out I was going to be a mother. But I was going to pretend at all costs that I had it. But I learned very, very quickly that my problem was powerlessness. And I had to find a power greater than myself by which I could live / mother. And that is what this big book is all about. And that's what we're going to dive in today. And we're going to find some more pages in here and some more paragraphs that will take us through how we connect to this power. And, in the early stages of motherhood, I was living in the bedevilments. I could not have relationships. I was a prey to misery and depression. They called it postnatal depression. It was total taboo in the family that I was raised in. We don't speak about depression. We don't acknowledge it. We don't admit to it. But all it just boils down to what you said, Kirsty. It's restless, irritable, and discontent. Anxiety, depression, P&D. That's what it is.
What's P&D?
Postnatal depression.
Okay, we call it postpartum depression. Got it. Yeah, I know all about that. Talk to us a little bit more. I do, I know we spoke about not going into a drunk lot, but they might be some newcomers on the line, and they see this beautiful, shiny woman, my best sister Nadia, and they may not quite have a visibility into the powerless of this mom in recovery. Give us a little bit of insight into your powerlessness when you came in these rooms, hitting rock bottom, beaten, broken down with a baby, or I don't know how old Nina was. Talk to us about your powerlessness and admitting it. How did you admit that you were powerless?
So I had the fortune of coming into the program with a daughter, and I was pregnant when I came into these rooms. So I had my second child in recovery. And even in recovery, the powerlessness and the unmanageability was there. For my daughter, I moved her to so many different schools, just like our founder Bill, zooting off on his on his motorbike, this place, living in I had sumptuous marriages, and there was this fighting and arguing and power play all the time, passing the baby from one to the other so that I could meet my needs. It was all important about me. I needed a break from motherhood. I need a break, and I would just pass her over to my mom, and I would pass her over to the next one. And the sleepless, endless nights, and doing everything, reading books, watching YouTube videos, phoning people, going to clinics, going to doctors, going to therapists, taking medicine, giving medicine, me taking medicine, giving them medicine, drugging them. Just self-will run right. All of these things I'm going to do on my own power to try and control the situation of being a mother. No God, no solution, just driven by fear. And I heard something amazing the other day. I shared at the last Reco that it's 400 forms of madness. Actually, it's 100 forms of fear, self-pity, delusion, resentment. If you multiply it by each other, it's 100 million. That's crazy.
Amazing. Talk to us about the unmanageability, Nadia. Talk to us about that life had become unmanageable. Here you were, pregnant in recovery. You already had one child. What became unmanageable?
Those endless, endless mornings of waking up with utter despair. Bill says it here. I'm just looking down which page it is. Page 8 on Bill's story. I mean, this just describes it absolutely beautifully, perfectly. Page 8, the second paragraph. No words can tell of the loneliness and despair I found in that bitter morass of self-pity. Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. I had met my match. I had been overwhelmed. Alcohol, motherhood, mothering on my own will was my master. I had conceded to that unmanageability. It was endless nights of screaming at children to do, little infant, a little baby who can't yet formulate his own words or understand the words that are coming out of my mouth, shouting at him, sleep, leaving him in a cot to sleep training him, just blotting out the existence, not listening to the crying and the screaming. How I did that, I just remember it all now. That loneliness because I can't ask for help. I cannot, because I'm not allowed to show anybody I am weak. No one is allowed to know I'm weak. No one is allowed to know I'm vulnerable. Nobody is allowed to know that I don't know what the hell I'm doing as a mother. That despair. I have tried everything. Taking a drink. So there's that paragraph of like, we drink beer, not scotch. We take a trip, don't take a trip. Lots of exercise, I was going to mama yoga classes. I was, like I said, looking at the medication route, then doing baby yoga. I had tried everything. And nothing, there was no peace in our home. There was no peace. And the self-pity and that jumping off point. I am a terrible mother. I might as well not be here. The kids don't need me because I'm suck at this job. I suck at this job. Oh, I'm feeling a lot of emotion here. A lot of emotion.
Okay, so let's just remember
Karen.
for a second. Let's take a deep breath together. And just remember, like the big book says, that our past is our greatest asset, that you're only sharing this for the purpose of saving the life of a potential drowning newcomer. If one mother didn't smack her daughter today, or didn't, get all punitive and malicious to her kid because of your share, then it will have been a gift from you and of God. So let's just connect to that our past is our greatest asset. Remember, Kimia once said this to me on Spiritual Gangsters. This is not a self-flagellation program. We're not here to out all our sins, and we all probably have a hearty laundry list of them. So let's just remember, your past is your greatest asset, and you are now live. This is live, people. She's feeling this live. We have compassion, and we get into the solution, which means we're taking our previous powerlessness, unmanageability, anger, violence, yelling, screaming, to be of service to God and his fellows, and empower other mothers in recovery and being better mothers, and raising healthier children. So thank you for helping us break the chain, Nadia. Kirsty, do you want to share about the unmanageability once you put your drug down, your drink down?
So, Kirsty, grateful addict, still grateful, recovered for today addict. So, do you know what page it just brought me to? Which I feel like still covers some of step one. I feel like step one and step two can overlap a bit, but page 17. We are like passengers of a great liner the moment after rescue from shipwreck, when Candamar, joyous and democracy pervade the vessel from steerage to captain's table. Unlike the feelings of the ship's passengers, however, our joy in escape from disaster does not subside as we go our individual ways. My life, my parenting, my unmanageability on the inside was like an absolute shipwreck. Without the drug there, I feel it was even harder because, as I said before, that effect produced by my drug of choice, whatever that may be, give me that solution to the unmanageability for a short time, even though I knew it was injurious, but I got that quick fix, that sense of ease and comfort, that being able to deal with life at last. My life was a shipwreck. It was an absolute disaster. I didn't know how to be me, let alone be a parent. My children wouldn't have clothes ready for school. They would miss days at school. They would if they got to school, it'd be very late. My whole life was like a shipwreck disaster. On the inside, though, the unmanageability, the feelings of despair and hopelessness, and fully knowing and conceding to my innermost self that I am not being a parent to these children, but desperately, somehow, someday, trying to control and enjoy my parenting. Not even my using at this point, page 30. Somehow, someday, the great obsession was that I didn't want to give my kids up. Looking back, if I'm honest with myself now, I should have given my kids up and let someone who wasn't an addict look after them. Let's be honest. I didn't want to. I clung on to that. Somehow, someday, I could control and enjoy my parenting. Like today, I know I can't control anything, but with God's help, with the grace of God, I can enjoy my parenting today, even when it is difficult. But in that unmanageability, it was literally like exactly what page 17 says, escape from a shipwreck. And I'm sure that's how my small children felt, that they was living in disaster, because that we really was living in disaster. But my unmanageability, more than the surroundings around me, was my unmanageability of me, with or without that drug. I couldn't be a parent. I didn't have that ability. And today, by the grace of God, I have the ability to be an accountable, reliable. But for anyone new out there, like, getting the solution. Our lives are unmanageable. We are unmanageable. I can only speak for me. I was unmanageable. I could not look after my kids. I could not look after my kids' emotions. I couldn't look after my emotions. Our whole lives were basically like a shipwreck disaster. But there is a solution, and it's a solution to all of that. It's not, as we go through the journey, I'm moving a bit from step one, we learn that the drugs, the alcohol, the men, the food, that is not our problem. I am my problem. And the great thing in that's the only thing I can change. I, with God's help, I can't change anyone around me, but in getting in this solution, I can get at that peace, ease, comfort. And it's a miracle I can be a mom. I never thought, all I thought I was getting from this was free of the substances that were killing me, but I got so much more. That shipwreck disaster of a life today is okay. It's a miracle.
Yeah, the unmanageability inside. And I think a lot of us who are addicts think like, I can't even deal with myself. Like, how can I deal with you little people, with your tantrums, or if it's teenagers, with your mood swings, with your hormones, with your friend issues, with ADHD, with Ritalin, with grades, with the system. It's like, how can I do that? How can I do that? And the answer is, I'm powerless. I can't. Yesterday on our Reco12 Afro-Euro meeting with Tom, he shared something that his now deceased of blessed memory sponsor said to him, said that our lives had become unmanageable. Who said our lives were supposed to be managed, right? See, that's where we went wrong. That's what brought us in these rooms flat on our face. Who said our life was supposed to be managed? They're unmanageable. They're unmanageable. And that's okay. Like, a lot of times when I used to read that in this fellowship, this was like a real nugget from yesterday, that my life has become manageable. I was like, oh yeah, I need to declutter. I need to be more organized. I need to keep a tighter schedule. I'm so all over the place. I'm such a creative. I'm not one of those, you open up my drawers, my things are not all lined up and in baskets and whatever you call her, Komodo. Anyway, I thought, well, that's what it meant, but it's like, no, my life is unmanageable because no human being can manage their life. Only God, only a higher power can manage my life. See, that was where I went wrong, was trying to manage it in the first place. And many of us try to manage it in different ways. Bill talks about, he was a stockbroker. Then all of a sudden, he discovered golf and he was ready to take on Walter Hagen. And then he sold everything and hopped on his motorcycle, his Harley or whatever it was, and went cross country. And then he found himself in Canada. And then he mentions that he was not to find work for several years and he was depressed and he considered suicide. How many sponsees have I had? Mommies who had suicidal ideation. Some of them also tried. Without him, it is too much. It is too much. Nadia, what do you got here? I don't even have a clear question. I'm sure you have something cooking.
So this is it. Thank you both for bringing me right back out of that self-pity, that morass, because that thing can swallow you up in an instant. Even when you're sitting with a group of recovered sisters, cunning, baffling, powerful, powerless. We are powerless. And that was my, 3 years.
Must not drift. Sorry to cut you off, right? We must not drift.
Must not drift.
How many of us must not drift? How many of us have a little nick on the face from a smack that we smacked somebody or everyone has their scars, physical and spiritual. We must not drift because that would prevent us from being useful. Okay. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
It's the idea that I'm like other people has to be smashed. Thank you. I love you both. I there are so many levels of unmanageability in my recovery. In the last 3.5 years, the suicidal thoughts at 18 months sober, not working a program, not listening to my sponsor, not working the steps, just coming to meetings. The unmanageability at 3 years sober, and I'm not connecting. I'm praying, I'm meditating, I'm sponsoring, I'm doing everything you all are asking me, but I'm not feeling the sunlight of the spirit because I had a finite God that was helping me mother, which was by punishing, conditional love. If you act this way, then I'll love you. If you are good, then if you're great, if this conditional love all the time. And then I was brought to my knees again with my daughter moving back to live with me, and things got real. Things got real. It wasn't just a phone call that I could do at my leisure and, the niceties, how's the weather, how's school. We were now sharing a home. We were sharing a home. We were sharing a bathroom. We were sharing a budget. We were sharing a kitchen. We were sharing a home. And we had been apart for 5 years. And I tried on my self-will again. I tried doing, because what does the book say? God is either everything or God is nothing. God has got to be in everything I do. So God was in recovery and he was with my sponsees and he was with me at the meetings and he'd started helping me with my finances, but I did not invite him into being a mom. And I shared it on my last one. The night came, I got a phone call. She was in a lot of trouble. And I had to stop the car and ask God to parent, right? And the magic happened. And it was there again. I was brought to my knees. Nadia, you cannot do this. Nothing. You cannot. There's nothing in my life I can do without God. And from that day, that absolute despair, when I was terrified of what I was going to find, and I just invited God in, take over the steering wheel, literally took over the steering wheel because we were driving. And God just took over that night and has taken over ever since. And when I begged on my knees for help, you guys came along, the Mommy podcast came along. God was like, I hear you. I'm going to send the minions. I'm going to send the love. I'm going to send the power because it's always been there. I just didn't realize that I tapped into a power, into an unlimited source. That's all I had to do. And the book and constant contact with God. And it's not just prayer and meditation. It's talking to my fellows in these fellowships, in these 12-step programs, talking to moms. I'm gonna out myself a bit here. I came in and all I spoke to was guys, because I'm a guys kind of gal, No, I need women in my life. I need parents in my life. I need parents, not single men whose attention I can get, because that's what's so important, because I'm an attention junkie. I need some soul sisters, some soul fathers, uncles, aunts, people who've got children in their lives that we can bounce and share these ideas and snorkel around in the big book and find the solution, find the answers. It's all in here. And that's what happened. I got to take the hand of a sponsor who was a recovered mom in the program, working like a soldier, towing the line, and she took me through a deep inventory on my daughter. Right through. Step 6 and 7, doing the things I don't want to do, starting to do the things I want to do, complimenting Nina, not judging her because she looks better than I did at that age, not judging her because she's super confident. I wish I had her confidence. Me. Taking her out for dates, making time, putting down the phone, taking Nina out for dates, getting her involved in the finances, getting her input in consequences in the house. Stop seeing her as just another means to my own ends. Oh, it was that was an incredible, immense process for me, because it took a lot of action, because Nina is tired of my silly words. My behavior would convince her more than my stupid words. She didn't want to hear my written amends. Where did they come from anyway? I don't know where I got written amends are done for people we can't see. So with Nina, I had to do a lot of action. And to this day, no criticizing, no getting angry. It's a dubious luxury of other men, not me, not this alcoholic sitting here.
Yes, we must smash the illusion that we're like other people. And I love that. It's like talking to men, getting the attention of men. That's just more selfishness, more me. And the big book passage I'm hearing in that is that we addicts are undisciplined. We let God discipline us. I want to talk to men. I want to talk about myself. God wants me to talk to women. God wants me to hear what you have to say. God wants me to let you shine, take it to the workplace. In my 20s, unrecovered, I had to be the star. Now I could help my coworker get a raise. I could pump her up. I could bring other people to the forefront. This is radical. This is really radical. I mean, you're seeing a changed woman here, and this is really about 6 and 7, right? Dropping the rock. We stop doing the things that we want to do, and we do the things that we have to do, right? People in OA, they may want to eat a whole chocolate cake, but they have to make 2 outreach calls and cut up a salad. They may want to buy, chips and Cheetos, but they're going to have to spend the time to peel vegetables and chop them. A price had to be paid, right? What do they call it? Kirsty, maybe you can jump in and help me here. Not the sacrifice of self. It's the end, something of self.
That is a God moment, because that is the page I am on, page 14 in the big book.
Booyah! We're good like that.
Simple, but not easy.
High five, virtual high five.
Simple, but not easy. A price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn in all being in my children, things to the Father of the light who presides over us all. Like, I must turn in all things. Like self-centeredness, that self-centered, I want to be a great parent. False pride, how do I look in my parenting? How does my child look? I, my. That self-centeredness, which comes from that fear, that false pride. A price has to be paid. Do you know what I mean? I have to do the things I don't want to do. It meant destruction of that self-centeredness. Like, how can I help God's child who's on loan to me? How can I be most useful and helpful to God's child to help them grow? I don't know what God's outcome is for my child. And after that little chapter, it goes on to say these were revelatory, I can never say that word, sorry, and drastic proposals. The word revelatory means, I actually Googled it. It actually means involving or causing a complete or dramatic change. So my book's telling me it's a drastic proposal. I have to turn all things into the Father of the light, meaning my children, meaning my parenting. I have to also put the right action in, but I have to turn them outcomes absolutely total self-centered destruction. I cannot live on thinking how I want my parenting to be, because that is another thing that I have no control over. Today, all I can do is put the right action in and leave God to the outcome and have ultimate trust that God has got my child. Even if things aren't going well, who said God's got good outcomes for me or my child? But I trust My book tells me God wants me to be happy, joyous, and free. So if I leave my book, I trust that sometimes I might have to go through uncomfy outcomes, surrender to them, to not know what God's got in store later on. And it brings me to another page, if that's okay, Karen. The bottom of page 25.
Yeah, you keep going.
I get to a crossroads. Do you know, if you are seriously addict, alcoholic, as I were, we believe there is no middle of the road solution. So no, not turning my parenting over, no holding on to, I'll have my child be good, none of that, no middle of the road solution. We were in a position where life was becoming impossible. Now, that impossible is what me and Nadia and Karen have just talked about, that unmanageability. That's my impossible. And if we had passed into the region from where there is no return for human aid, again, the no return for human aid is what me, Karen, and Nadia have just gone over, that total powerlessness of keep doing the same thing, trying all these other things. These, like Nadia said, moving house, they're my logs, they're my unpowerlessness. So there's no return for human aid and life's impossible, unmanageable. So I get to two alternatives. One is to go on to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of my intolerable situation the best I can. That doesn't necessarily mean snorting that lines of cocaine, shouting at my child, living in that fear of wanting my child to do this. I can blot out the consciousness of my intolerable situation, of wanting my child to be the way I want him to be, wanting my child to get this or want. Do you hear all that want, when all I need today is to turn all things over to the Father of the light, including the outcomes for my child, to be most helpful and useful on the journey. So I can either blot out the consciousness of the intolerable situation, because in my opinion means nothing, but in my opinion, teenage years is an intolerable situation. But I can either blot the consciousness out, being the old me, being that powerless person, that unmanageable person where life was impossible, or this is my second choice. And the other is to accept spiritual help. So I either do that intolerable situation, blotting it out, screaming, shouting, arguing, wanting life to suit me, or I accept spiritual help. And I do that by what it just said on page 14. I turn all things over to the Father light, which is a drastic proposal that I will wake up in the morning and make the only decision I'm capable of making any day, to make a sincere position to turn my will and life over to the care of God, including my life, my child's life. And I can say one thing: my children was not in safe hands when I was an addict. My children are not in safe hands if I wake up and don't make that sincere position to turn my will over to God. They're really, really not. Because as we discussed earlier, even without the drug of choice there, without God, without the spiritual help, I'm in that unmanageable place. So today I make that one decision. That's all I have to do. Make that one decision to have a sincere position. Top of page 63, I think it is. Sincere position to turn my life and will over to the care of God, my children's outcomes, my parenting, all things to the Father of the light, and have that ultimate trust that God has got me. God has got my children, and that does not mean the outcomes out I might not agree with, but I'm not God today. I cannot run the show. I'm not the actor wanting my child to do exactly what I want, because that's not reality today. Reality is I'm here to guide, grow in understanding and effectiveness, parenting with God. How wonderful, though. How wonderful, guys. Anyone struggling with parenting, you don't have to. Turn it over to God. Put the right action in. Speak to like-minded people. Get a Mummy God Squad. Get my number via Reco12, Nadia and Karen as well. Us mums, parents, dads, fathers, aunts, uncles, together with the help of God. Like, beautiful life, beautiful program.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, they're just two options. That's amazing what you said. And I so second the motion that I can blot out my consciousness I paraphrase, the intolerable situation by yelling, screaming. You know, that's a hit. You know, one of my old OA sponsors, who's in South America, Central America, used to tell me, you know, that's what anger does for you. It gets your endorphins going. When you shout at your teen or you shout at your kid, you know, that's a hit. I can, like, you know, get drunk on anger, or I can accept spiritual help, which is a big fat dose of humility. And I'm just going to comment on what Kirsty said about in all our affairs, right? Accept spiritual help means that if I have a parent teacher, we call it PTA in America, if I have a parent teacher meeting conference this evening, I'm going to say the serenity prayer. I'm going to say, thy will, not mine, be done. And I'm going to hear what's said. And recently I had a PTA with a school psychologist and a aide and a special teacher. And, you know, I didn't hear very fun things, but because I accepted spiritual help and I went in with God, I was like, okay, we got to make an appointment with a neurologist, check out the ADD. We got to maybe get some therapy in. And this is God's child. Is like, you know, I went to the properly appointed authority. Want to bring that in, right? Mommy, we discussed this yesterday, Nadia, Kirsty, and I. Mommy is not the properly appointed authority. And my fellow who's on this line, will leave her anonymous, good fellow who I love here in Israel is on this line. She's always saying, I am not my child's properly appointed authority for everything. If they need to talk about their issues again and again and again, you know, that's what a therapist is for. You know, we're connected. That I'm not the person to do that all the time. I'm the person who has to do their laundry, you know, until they can. I'm the person who's responsible for getting supper on the table. I'm the person responsible. Thank God, right? It's a privilege. There are people who don't have parents. There are people who are, you know, kicked out that their parent won't be sitting in the PTA. Thank God I have the privilege. God has appointed me to sit in the PTA and to be the one to cook dinner and to be the one to, you know, buy snacks in the supermarket. But it's not my job to do everything. It's not my job to handle neurodiversity, as they call it these days. It's not my job to handle, you know, emotional issues, psychological issues. It's not my job to handle every social thing. You know, before one of my daughters started high school, I sent her to like a social coach, you know, how to learn the map of the class, how to make friends, how to not tick people off. You know, that was a great investment. Properly appointed authority. PAA. And what did you say we could accept spiritual help? That means parent teacher conference. We bring in God. School psychologist. We bring in God. Some people, you know, I don't wish it on anyone. Parole officer. We bring in God so that you can even sit and, you know, as the big book says, when certain calamities or whatever strike, you know, because things happen, life happens, you know, it's not meant to be a veil of tears, but rough stuff, you know, we have bumps in the road. But if we come in with God, we could hear what is said. We could take the next right actions. We could talk to the properly appointed authority and do what needs to be done and just keep praying for this child and for myself to be able to parent and take care of this gift that he entrusted me with. Nadia, let's hear a little bit from you. Where are you going to take us in the big book? Where are you going to take us here?
Promises, because we're powerless and there's been this hopelessness and we heard it all, right? And we can continue to color in this picture, but there are some promises because we take the sincere position. We took these drastic proposals. We took them steps 4 through to 9. Let's clear the wreckage. Let's clean out the obstacles. What's blocking us? And listen here, these are the promises. And this is legit the truth. It was chaos in this house every single day. Fighting, screaming, clinging, pushing, chucking, breaking every day. Now, hold on. This is what's happened since I've taken this sincere position. Every morning on my knees, it's not in the big book, but it just reminds me, Kirsty, you said it, and you, Karen, it just reminds me that beautiful, beautiful principle of humility. That's where the power lies for me, because me without humility ain't a good deal. The promises are, the effect was electric. there was a sense of victory. Finally, I'm not baffled by situations in my home, this intolerable situation. I loved what you said, Kirsty. I laughed so much. There was a sense of victory. There is a sense of victory in this home. Nina came home after a 2-week holiday away with her bonus mom and her dad. And she just said to me, Mom, it's really good to be home because I can be myself, utterly myself. Wow, she could never be herself. She had to be on guard with me always, hiding, crouching, careful of what she had to say, how she said it, followed by such a peace and serenity as I had never known. There's peace in this house, guys. We go weeks. We're not perfect. I'm not a saint. There are words, and we do have grumpy mornings and moods and the cycle and you name it, but there's peace and serenity like I have never known in this home that we are in. There's utter confidence. I have confidence now. I've been given a power. I am tapped into this power, and I have a confidence as a mom. I now know the role that I have been assigned. I'm not the PAA for therapy and medicine and treatment and extra lessons and maths and science, whatever it is. I am the role that I've been assigned. Like you said, Karen, how beautiful to make the meals, to help with the chores around the house, to cart around, to be there when she's in trouble, to give a hug when she's willing to give a hug. These promises have come true. I felt lifted up as though the great clean wind of a mountaintop blew through and through. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask if anyone has any questions. We're coming to the top of the hour. Can you please post your questions in the Q&A? Does anybody have questions about being a mommy in recovery? If you do, please go ahead and post them. Feel free to address them to whomever you want to answer them, or if not, I'll assign someone to them. And maybe I'll open with the first question. I guess I've asked a bunch, so it's not really the first anymore. Something happens. Someone yells, someone screams, or, mommy had a bad day at work. Talk to me about a course correction. How do you course correct? Tell me about your program live when something goes awry. Nadia, I see you on the screen, so why don't you go first?
Oh, that's a great question, because that's right. We need paint by numbers. Like, okay, that's great. The book has got a lot of stuff, but how do we do this? What is the actual actions that we take? So for me, we've sat down and I've said, right, I am crazy most of the time. When Mama taps into prayer, when Mama taps into meditation, when Mama walks away, and I've told her about Paul's Land, we're getting made up passports made for Paul's Land, and that's like both our tickets. I say to her, I need to walk away, and I walk away and I pray, I call somebody. I first ask God, and then I discuss. In the morning, before Nina wakes up, before the world wakes up, I make sure that I tap into that power. I do my prayer and meditation, my upon awakening. And then when we are in a situation where all I'm getting is 6 messages, like I have while we've been doing this podcast, I need this, you need to do this now, it has to happen now, that crazy death texting that they can do when they want something, I just send a message and say, I will call you in an hour. Just loving, firm, that's what I can do. I can't do more right now. And I've explained to her as well, it'll be short, little clear instructions, just like the book, clear-cut instructions. I'm not going to go over it or beyond it, and it doesn't mean that I don't love you. I'm not there. I'm not there for the next hour. And that's a confidence I've been given. I would never have been able to do that, Karen. Never. I would have messaged her throughout the meeting saying, I'm going to be there now. Are you okay? Panic, panic, panic. I don't get to do that anymore. I've got a peace beyond my own understanding.
I love that. Whoever's listening, right? We want to get our, one-way ticket to Pause Land. We want to make sure we've all got those in our back pocket, the ticket to Pause Land, right? Where is that in the big book? This is Getting Heated in the Family Afterwards, right? Let's discuss this later, right? Living with an alcoholic will make anybody neurotic. Family Afterwards also says something like that. Okay. Kirsty, I have another question here. Let's see. I see Esther has her hand up. Put your question in the chat. We have a question from Emma D. How do I deal with the kids when they bring up the past about things that aren't true?
Great question. Great question. And I experience this often over and over and over and over. So, firstly, I remind myself, this is just me from my experience, that I did not know the truth from the false. My alcoholic addict life was the only normal one. I could not differentiate the truth from the false. So, as a living amends to my children today, that if they're bringing it up to me, which I have with my child, it's their truth. Whether I believe that was what happened or didn't happen, or whether it's true or it's not true, I don't get into that. Because today, I always, if something upsets me that my child says, I disregard that totally. Look where I'm to blame. Just like the book tells me, watch for my selfishness, my self-centered, my dishonesty. But I always remember I was a very sick person for a very long time where I could not see the truth from the false. As a living amends today for my children, I listen to them and acknowledge the feelings. Also added to that, I do not drift into remorse, self-pity, guilt. I try and flip it around. I don't go over and over a problem. I try and get to do a mini step 4 or 5 with my children, because I think it's a great practice for anyone, right? So you're angry at mum that this happened, like, what can we do today to make that better? Mum acknowledges mum was very poorly. I might not remember things how you do. I couldn't. I was very, very sick person. Today, what I can say is I will put all the right action in. So you don't feel like this again. But I can't control how my child feels. But I can assure them that going forward today, whatever that problem that might not be true or might be true, I don't really get into that. But I can assure them today, what's happened in the past, mum acknowledges I was not well. I might not remember it how you did. I don't go into the book with them like, I can't differentiate the truth from the false, but I know this. So in knowing this bit, mum might not remember it like that. Mum's sorry you feel this has happened or feel that. I acknowledge them. I be considerate, caring and loving, whether I think it's true or not. As a living amends to my children, I acknowledge that feeling they're going through because it's true to them there and then. And I'm loving, considerate, caring, reliable, accountable, and be a parent for that moment, whether I think it's true or not. I disregard that totally. And I show up in my column 5 for my children right there and then. Also not drifting into remorse, guilt, worry, self-pity, and flipping it onto what can we do today? Going forward, this is, and I have to have the same conversations with my children sometimes over and over and over. And I do the same thing because that's my living amends. Sit there, hold the space for them, try to the best of my ability to flip it to a positive. Obviously, I might have to go and ring Nadia or Karen and do a step 10 on this then, because that has made me think, resentful, like I didn't do that to my child. That didn't happen. That's me. So what I do is disregard that column 2, disregard totally how that my child saying this has made me feel. Look, where am I to blame? Well, I couldn't see the truth from the false. I've caused a lot of harm to my children. I'm being selfish in thinking, and this is just me, my personal, I'm being selfish, I'm being dishonest to think I can remember what was true and what wasn't. That's my experience. But I disregard them, look at where I'm to blame. And I can't remove that. I feel that. I know that today. I can't remove that I'm suddenly feeling, my child's being, I can't remove that selfishness, self-centeredness, that fear. So I do my step 7 prayer and I pray it away. God, please help remove it, because that is going to block me off from the one who keeps me clean and sober today. So I disregard the upset it's causing. I look where I'm to blame. I have them honest, accountable, loving, caring conversations with my child, no matter how many times I have to. And I remember today I couldn't see the truth from the false.
I'm going to jump in on what Kirsty here said, and it's great because none of you guys can answer. So, I have the mic. We disregard the other person entirely. So your daughter's having a fit. Your son wants to go out with his friends. They're doing, I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what they're back talking. We disregard the other person entirely, right? Don't we realize that we had at some point step on the toes of our fellows and cause them to retaliate? Did I not step on the toes of my kid? Did I not ask my daughter to do a million chores? So no wonder when I got to the 25th chore, she bit back. Or I don't know, maybe I didn't say, let's say what time you're going to be home in the outset, but then flipped out when they weren't home when I thought they should be home. Where was I at fault? Where was I to blame? Well, I didn't set a curfew. Sometimes it's that simple, right? Where was I at fault? Where was I to blame? I watched too much news and that put me in a bad mood. So I didn't have the proper patience for my child. How about that? We disregard the other person entirely. We have a bunch of questions here and we have only 4 minutes left. Brandy asked a few questions, so I'm going to choose one of them. The first one I think is great. I mean, they're all great. How do you make amends to your kids, Nadia? And verbal versus living amends.
So, like I said earlier, Brandy, thank you for your question. I had a written amend, which I think was a great guide for me, just to reiterate the hurt and the stepping on toes of the others, right? And I'd made quite a few amends in my family, and it was time for Nina and I. And thank God my sponsor jumped in and she was like, your stupid words are going to mean nothing. Your behavior is going to convince her. And it was through this constant, repetitive, daily reprieve, doing, living in steps 10, steps 11, and step 12. When 6, line it out, my teen became very troublesome, I just threw myself that much harder into working with another alcoholic because that was sure to save the day. And yes, after I had done that, or because I'm doing that, there's this compassion, this love. I am constantly reminded of who I am, where I come from. I must never forget. And when I come home, I am living in those principles, practicing them: patience, tolerance, kindness, gentleness, accountability, all the things I was never to Nina, I am now, but I could never do that on my own will. God gave me that power. That comes to me when I'm living in steps 10, 11, and 12. That comes to me. It just comes. That's how it is with us alcoholics. And that was my living amends. Constant action with Nina. Living amends, not words. She is done with words. Done. Children don't hear our words. They don't hear our words. They watch us. They feel us. That's in my experience.
Yes, I'm also done with words. I get that. Nadia is done with words. I'm also talked a good game. Our actions will convince them more than our words. And I just want to say something about children. I really should find where this is in the big book, and maybe you all can help me. But just because they say all kinds of crazy things, it doesn't mean it's what they feel like. I went to a PTA the other day and the teacher was saying, oh my gosh, your kids will look up to you. And they're always talking about their mother and their mother's job. And their mother works with all these people and loves to help people. And there's a war here and she helps soldiers. So it's like, they may be back talking to us, but let's not play God or mind reader and think we know what they think. They may have a whole host of admiration, respect, and love for you. This is just a test from God. They're the messenger. That's just a test from God. So I think living amends might take us to page 417. Acceptance is the answer to all our problems. Accepting her hormones, accepting her outburst, accepting that it's a bad day. And sometimes that might mean like, I'm not going to talk to her right now. I'm not going to talk to her today. I'm going to go to Pilates to make sure I can, have the strength and resilience to deal with this. It might mean a lot of things. Yeah. Okay. We had a specific question here. I mean, I don't know. We're for sure not going to answer anything legal, but Kirsty, Jazz R is asking, when is it time to accept what is when local authority is not moving me to a suitable accommodation? To thine own self be true. Do I get legal help or remain in God's trust and stay put?
So I would always go to the properly appointed authority. God provides us with these people to use them, but going to the properly appointed authority, I would always go in my column 5. So if you don't know what column 5 is, download Cameron's workbook, age 18. Column 5, be all the things in column 5. go into the situation thinking, how can I be helpful? How can I be useful? Not going in thinking, I want this house or I want this properly appointed person, but also turning it over to God, turning it over to God and accepting the outcome. And takes me back to that sincere position. Nobody has said God is gonna have me living in this suitable accommodation or that. We don't know what God has in plan for us, but put the right action in. Go to my experience would be in anything. Go to the properly appointed people in that column 5 in the most helpful, useful way I can possibly be, but absolutely accept the outcome. The outcome is what's in God's hands. So the outcome is reality. So if I'm fighting against any outcome, that's my will, what I want. I always get what I need. It's not always what I want. I hope that's helpful.
Nadia, do you want to answer that one as well?
So I had a lot to do with legal bodies and entities. With the last year, I had a court case regarding custody for my young boy, which we haven't spoken about today, but he's in God's hands and he's in another continent. And I was speaking to the wrong people all the time, going to friends and going to family and going, not the properly appointed authority. And I asked, in our country, there's the family advocate, there's the family court. There are so many institutions, regardless of our old ideas about the system. Because remember, our old ideas have to be smashed, else the result will be nil. So if you've got old ideas about what the system's all about and the government, and you will not, when I went in with a sincere position, with a helpful heart and trusting God, I got the most unbelievable response and help. I can spend a whole hour talking to you about what happened in my life there, but all I had to do was go in with prayer, a sincere desire to be helpful. When those people came to see me, not to slay Dad, not to slay Alexander's father, but to find out how I could be helpful. And the help that came my way, the healing, the support from the system, it was unbelievable. It was a miracle. And I wish the same for you.
Amazing. We're out of time here. We do have a few more questions, so I'm sorry I didn't get to your question, but you're welcome to go to Reco12 shares, and there's a forum there for asking more questions, or you could save it for our next podcast when we talk about the doctor's opinion or tackle step 2, came to believe. We talked a lot about powerlessness. We talked about unmanageability, hitting, yelling, screaming, feeling miserable, suicidal. But guess what? If we're here and if we're staying in this herd, which y'all better if you want to live and you want to be happy, joyous, and free, we're going to come to believe. So maybe let's look to that on the horizon. Come to believe that there is a solution. There is a better way. God can do for us what we can't do for ourselves. And with that, I invite you all to join us in the we version of the Serenity Prayer. And I bless everyone on this line that you spread the light of recovery, that you spread your own godliness to all those around you in all of your affairs, and that you merit to see that bit of God in every human being, irrespective of their column 2, right? And how they might behave or talk or act. And let's all come together for the we version of the Serenity Prayer.
God, grant us
the serenity
to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, the wisdom to know the difference. Thy will be done, not I. Amen.
Amen. Thank you all for joining us in the Afro-Euro podcast. If there are other topics you'd like us to tackle, you could reach out to me by emailing reco12pod@gmail.com. Just let Justin know that you want to pass a message on to me. And if you'd like to share, put that information in the chat. We'd be honored to have your shares. Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for joining. Have a blessed day.